Hello, knitters. Welcome to a live episode of Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. For this week, I just have one announcement. This week, we are still reading Political Ponerology. You have time to go out and get this book. If you get it, I recommend that you get the version that has a foreword by Michael Rechtenwald, who we've had on the show before. And I think that you'll want to get the hard copy because you'll want to take a lot of notes because it's a really great book. Without further ado, I'm very excited about my guest tonight. Many of you already know him. He is the founder and owner of Geeks and Gamers, Sports Wars, and co-host of Friday Night Tights. I will remind him that I beat him in 2 rounds of Mario Kart recently. Please welcome Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers.
You had to bring up the Mario Kart. You had to bring it up. Hi, Keri. It's great to be here. It's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking time out to be on Deprogrammed. I had to bring it up because, look, it was only, to be fair, it was only 2 rounds out of like more than 50 rounds. So, but they meant a lot to me.
That's what I said. That's why I tell Ryan. Ryan seems to think he's good whenever he gets that cheap victory on me. I'm like, no, that's who they're marketing the game to. It's people like you that aren't good but get a cheap victory off of me. So yeah, it's good stuff.
It's like a blue shell victory, I think.
Yes. I see you, low watermark. I see you in the chat. So.
So everyone I think everyone here, a lot of people here know who you are, but I still have people, I always tell this to people, I still have people from my old life, social justice world who hate watch me. And some of them, I've had really encouraging notes where they end up like coming around. That's happened. And so just in case there's anyone watching who's not familiar with you or who thinks you're the sexiest man.
Sexiest now. I went from the most sexist man on Twitter to the sexiest, all over one spelling error. You gotta love it. You love it.
So for people who might have heard that about you and not know anything else, will you tell them just a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So my name is Jeremy. I am the founder and owner of Geeks and Gamers. Geeks and Gamers is a big YouTube channel, big YouTube network. We also have a website. We have Twitch channel. We have a huge team of people, and we basically talk about pop culture and everything that kind of relates to entertainment, whether that even be sports, movies, video games. We even cover theme parks. We cover a lot of wide variety of things. We're very opinionated. I'm kind of the face of it, but we have a lot of individuals there that I think have rivaled me in a lot of different ways. And the whole point is that Geeks and Gamers is all about individuality. The Geeks and Gamers brand has no single opinion on anything, but the individuals within it have whatever opinions they want, and they'll never apologize for that, no matter what those opinions are. That's the kind of mentality we've tried to create, and we're going to continue to move that forward because I think that's very needed in the world today. Never apologize. No one has the answer to me of what their opinion is or what their thoughts are on something. That's just not how we roll over there. So really proud of the growth that we've seen in the last few years, but it's only the beginning for us. We have a lot more plans that we're trying to execute over the next few years.
And you guys have grown, like, as you said, you have lots of different channels now. You have the Geeks and Gamers Play, the theme park channel. When did you start?
I mean, I started Geeks and Gamers in 2011, but it started out as video game tournaments in Montgomery, Alabama. Essentially, I grew up playing video games. Arcades was a big thing back in the day. And once console gaming became a thing with the internet, with online multiplayer, we were playing a lot of games online, but I wanted to play these games in person with people. So I was just a retail worker. I didn't have any money, but I had this idea, like, I want to play video games in person. We can do a big tournament and we can have people come to it, just like the arcades. Because you remember when you're playing video games and 2 players are playing each other and there's a crowd behind you and there's cheering. I was like, I missed that element of it. And so I started doing local video game tournaments. At that point in time, the name Geeks and Gamers was not created. It was after the 2nd or 3rd tournament, I kind of created the logo and the name. And it was just a low-key thing. It was just a local thing. It wasn't even a big business idea. And
just fun.
And we did several tournaments, and eventually I got burned out on those because I was borrowing a lot of equipment and I was nervous I was going to lose that equipment. I didn't have the money to pay for it. It was fun, though. I was really proud of what we accomplished, but I kind of moved on from it, and then it kept evolving over the years to get to where we are now. But it's 2011 is when I first created it.
And when did you start to see this this incredible growth? Was there a point at which you were like, whoa, where it just an inflection point where it took off?
Last Jedi for sure. And that was a interesting moment in the history of Geeks and Gamers too, because we had been around for so long and we had a YouTube channel, we had a big Facebook group, we had a website, and eventually I started evolving that. So we started this Facebook group that I just was for me and my friends, but it started growing. So then I renamed it Geeks and Gamers, and then it started growing, and it was getting thousands and thousands of members. And I would see people come in there and post like the review for the latest movie, and they're like, "Oh, I saw this movie," and they give a big review, and then they give a score, and I'm like, well, what if I got that guy to write that review on my website, and he just writes for my website instead of just putting it in a Facebook group that's going to get lost in the shuffle? And so that's how we started to evolve the site into more editorial stuff. And then I got an editor in chief, and then a couple of the guys came to me and said, we should start a YouTube channel. Well, had no interest in being an on-air personality. So I was like, let's start a YouTube channel. If you guys have some ideas, throw them at me. They came up with some ideas. We started a YouTube channel. It was objectively terrible. The stuff we were putting was objectively terrible, but we were trying. And that channel had been around for a while, about 4 years, and it didn't even have 1,000 subscribers. And I was getting very frustrated at that point in time, because I'm like, we're not going anywhere. We're just treading water. And I'm not being outspoken about a lot of the stuff going on. I'm just seeing everybody else get political about stuff, and I'm keeping quiet, even though people on my team are still able to talk about whatever they want. The guy that runs it, was not saying anything, and I was
wow.
So late 2017.
Wait, is that why you were quiet? Because you were a Trump supporter?
No, well, I was quiet because I didn't feel like it was necessary for me as a leader of a company to say anything about my politics, because who cares? I didn't think that publicly it doesn't matter who I support. And that's how I feel everybody should be. But as the world changes, as things shift, you go, well, if we're going to get to a point where people are going to find out I'm a Trump supporter and weaponize that against me, then I just need to go ahead and just tell the world I'm a Trump supporter and not apologize for it. So that's because I would see there would be like these weirdos on social media, and they're like, I would support this company, just random company. They're like, I would support this company, but I found out their owner voted for Trump. And I'm like, so what?
Yeah.
And I thought about, like, if I grow Geeks and Gamers, at some point people will find out I'm a Trump supporter. And I don't want that to be like a thing where I have to worry about it. So I'll just say it, so I can just be transparent. Yes. It's like being gay. It's what it is. It's like, you just, and so it's one of those things. So late 2017, that's what I was seeing happening. So I got with my whole team, and I essentially just said, hey, a lot of people are speaking out about things. We're in a really crazy time with Trump being president. All my people on the team from back end knew. They knew I was a Trump supporter privately. But I said, I'm going to start speaking out about what I'm seeing, because I don't like what I'm seeing, and I'm tired of biting my tongue. About 7 people quit on me immediately because they knew I was going to go public as a Trump supporter. And they knew that they couldn't publicly be linked to me, because they knew that their friends or colleagues were just going to be like, you're working with a Trump supporter. And so I had a lot of them quit on me, and they were calling me all these like horrible names.
Shocking to you? Or
it was a little hurtful, because these were people that I developed relationships with, and I tried to work with them. I didn't have the resources I have now, but at the time, whatever resources I had, I would put back into, like, I would buy them a webcam, or I would buy this, or I would send them that, or I would do anything I could to help them. And they all had my phone number. And suddenly that was my first kind of realization as to, like, leftists they don't care. It doesn't matter what you do. They will eat you alive the moment that you infringe on their social circle. And so they knew I was a Trump supporter privately, but when I said I was going to speak out publicly, they all quit, and they labeled me all these names and twisted everything. And I'm like, wow. So that was kind of my first kind of moment that I saw the reality of the situation.
Right. And that was kind of, in my opinion, I wonder what you think about this. I think that was kind of new with Trump. I mean, I think definitely there was a lot of hatred for W, and I was in the cult. I was in the social justice cult.
I hated George W. Bush, but yeah, you're right. It wasn't the same. Yeah.
It wasn't the same, though. With Trump, I feel like, and I don't think it was actually him. Do you think it was him, or it was just the time, like culturally where we were, it all came to a head where the left became more cultish at that same time?
I think it's more so. I mean, the culture obviously had to be where it was, but there's not a human being on the planet that could do what Donald Trump did. Like the balls that man has, the things he says. And I'll never forget this. And I've always been a fan of Donald Trump, but he went to South Carolina in the campaign for 2016, where George W. Bush at the time had, because this is where Jeb Bush was still in the race. George W. Bush was coming out to campaign for the first time since he was no longer president. And there was a big story. And at the time in South Carolina, George W. Bush had like a 95% approval rating from the Republican Party in South Carolina. Donald Trump stood on stage and said George W. Bush lied about weapons of mass destruction and created and the whole crowd booed him. There's not another human being on the planet that would have done that. But he did it because he's Donald Trump. And love him or hate him, the man has giant balls. He just does. And so I think it's a combination. The culture was obviously moving in this direction, and I think it was elevated by Barack Obama's rhetoric. But nobody could get away with what Trump did. And the fact that he was unapologetic about it, and the fact that he had enough money to not care what anyone said, and the fact that he could stand on stage and when they would accuse him of things like going to Hillary Clinton's wedding, and he's like, well, of course I was at Hillary's wedding. I could get anything out of any politician I wanted because you guys can all be bought and paid for. And it's like, holy crap. You know what I mean? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I think it's a combination, but you look at it, there's nobody else that could pull off what Trump did. There's no one, because his personality is so magnetic. He's got this name that just carries so much weight. And no matter what room that man walks in, he's the most important person in the room. Just
you know
is.
what's funny? I didn't see a lot of those clips that you're talking about. I'm from South Carolina, is my home state. I didn't even see that clip or the other one you mentioned about Hillary's wedding, because I was so far in the leftist cult at the time that I didn't watch anything he did. I just received my opinions about him. So after I've come out of it, I've gone back and I've started watching some of his stuff, and I haven't seen those yet, but I've started watching some of his stuff that I ignored studiously at the time. And he's really funny.
Yes, yes.
Like,
he's hilarious. His comedic timing is unbelievable. I mean, it's like the Rosie O'Donnell clip. I don't remember that, but like when
I do remember that when I saw that one.
When Megyn Kelly was like, "You've called women fat, you've called them that," he goes, "Only Rosie O'Donnell." Like, God, no one else would do this. Anybody else would have been like, well, look, I might have said some offensive things in the past, and but I'm working to be. No, he just only Rosie O'Donnell. Like it's amazing. It's crazy.
He's like part comedian. Okay. So you started, you kind of came out, you had your coming out as, look, I am one. I am a Trump voter.
Yeah.
You had 7 employees quit. And then how did that impact Geeks and Gamers in your commentary? Were you suddenly free to just sort of, what happened after that in terms of your commentary?
Yeah, so right after that, lucky enough, The Last Jedi came out, which I was not planning on hating at all. I've had a lot of optimism for Disney Star Wars and just, entertainment in general. Although I was seeing things happening, it was like, am I really seeing this? Like, really? And I've told the story about going to Star Wars Celebration right before The Last Jedi came out, and how they made the announcement for Battlefront 2, and how it was another female lead. And that would have been the 3rd straight female lead. Like, you had The Force Awakens, you had Rogue One, and then you had Battlefront had this woman of color as the female lead for the Empire. And I'm looking at it going, there's no way that she's going to stay in the Empire. Like, she's clearly going to have some kind of turn, because they can't make a woman be a bad guy. And I was there, and before they made the announcement, they came up on stage and they were like, "Hey everyone, how many female gamers do we have?" And like 4 girls screamed at an audience of like hundreds. And I'm like, why did they ask that question? And this is all kind of just little things that are adding up. And I'm like, I don't like what I'm seeing here. But then The Last Jedi is what kind of broke everything and opened up the floodgates. And so as that happened, I started to kind of see everything else as The Last Jedi fell apart for me, and how Disney was blaming the fans. And it just I just kept reporting on it, and I kept calling it out, and I kept trashing Kathleen Kennedy, and I kept trashing Lucasfilm. Now, again, you have to understand, I had a relationship with Lucasfilm. I had friends that worked at Lucasfilm. I went on a personal tour of Lucasfilm prior to all of this. When I started criticizing The Last Jedi, unfollowed, unfriended on Facebook, and never have I heard from this person again. was their social media manager, and all because I criticized The Last Jedi and called out Lucasfilm. But I was like, well, it's got to be called out, and I'm not going to apologize for that. So that's what really pushed me in that direction, was Hollywood trashing the fans.
What have you? Well, let me ask you this: where do you think that we're at? Everybody talks about the culture war a lot, but you guys, when I discovered the huge fellowship that you and channels like Nerdrotic have built, like the Friday Night Tights crew, that was so amazing, because it's like these are people who are talking about entertainment and culture. And I know there's people who are coming at the culture war from different angles. Like there's the professors and the academics, but the people who are right in the heart of the entertainment space, I think, are so impactful, because I think a lot of this starts with culture. And so being someone who's there criticizing what you find wrong in culture at the moment, like where do you think we're at currently? Do you think the tide is turning?
I do think the tide is turning, but I think it's a layered thing that we're looking at here, because it all matters. You need people criticizing and calling stuff out, but that ain't going to be the only thing. So people like me and Gary just bitching about stuff, like that's not going to win the culture war. Okay. Not that in isolation, but it's definitely a piece to the puzzle. But you need people out there like Ripa, like Shadiversity, like EBS. These people are out there creating the content that is part of the counter as well. You also need places like the Daily Wire that are creating a different kind of culture with movies and things like that. You need people that are creating, but you also need voices that are commentating on it, because what sets the tone for Hollywood is all of these shill websites, all of these entertainment, sources that are pushing whatever they need because they want that access. Well, I think in a lot of ways, people like Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, Friday Night Tights, so many others that are connected to us, we have replaced so many of those voices on YouTube, and it drives them crazy.
Yeah.
We have replaced so many of them, and that's an important piece to the puzzle, but it's not the only piece. So without people out there creating, we are nothing. We are nothing. But for the people out there creating, they're nothing without voices to back them up to the general audience, which is what we are. So it's a combo of, we need many different fronts on this entire culture war. It's not just one. It's not just one person. It's not just one creation. It's not just one movie, one comic, one YouTube channel. None of that matters if it's not a united front, because if we're not all working together, the left is working together because they have a unified hatred of Trump. And that's the one thing that pulls them all together, is they hate Trump. They hate DeSantis. They hate anybody that has an R next to their name. That's what pulls them together. They'll eat each other alive all day long, but until Daddy Trump name comes up, and then they all get back on the same page. You know what I mean? And so they have that common goal, and they have unification. Whereas a lot of times we don't have that as much as we should. And I think some people miss that point, but it's a layered question and a layered answer that gets us to that point.
You're so right. They are united in hatred. And I think that's why what you're saying about the multi-layered approach is so important, because it can't just be criticism, because that's more, that's critical, and I'm not saying criticism is hatred, it's not, but it's coming from a, like, this is what we don't like place. And we also need creation, like what you're saying, like people like Ripa who are challenging the system, who are giving people an alternative platform for comics. Like, you need both at the same time. Do you think a lot about the ideology that supports all of the culture wars, like the woke ideology, like what it is and what its end goals are?
I personally feel like maybe I'm wrong on this. I think it's fairly simple. I think that there's two entities that make up the majority of it. There's the powers that be in the corporate Hollywood, world. The people that drive things are the powerful people on top, and they need the weakest of weak minds out there to manipulate. They can't control people like me or Gary or Ryan or any of those people, and that drives them crazy. They are looking to benefit from manipulating the most weak, lazy, pathetic people out there. And that's why they continue to elevate their, what they continue to say, marginalized voices. The worst thing in the world for the powers that be is for an Eric July to be successful.
Yeah.
Because they don't want a black man to be successful. They don't want him to be, because they want to push the narrative that black people need the great white hope help. They need powerful elites in Hollywood to help you. Black people, we're just here to help you. Women, we're here to help you. Non-white dudes, we're here to help you. And all those non-white dudes, they have everything handed to them in life. And as long as they can keep that narrative going, and of course, that's why mental illness is not being addressed in this country. It's being celebrated. Why are we celebrating mental illness? It's insane. Yeah. Why are we celebrating it? Because you can manipulate those people. So you want to celebrate mental illness by, or you want to address mental illness by celebrating it and encouraging it instead of addressing it. Because the more you can manipulate that narrative, the more that the powers that be can stay on top and continue to control the lower levels. That's what I think.
Do you think we'll reach a point at which woke is so dead in the water, woke belief system ideology, that we don't have to talk about it in commentary anymore in our lifetime?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, that's kind of what we're all hoping to work towards. I don't think we're anywhere near like the end of this. I think we're entrenched in it for the foreseeable future for now, because it's intertwined in everything, whether that's your recent Rings of Power or your She-Hulks or your Star Wars, and those things are, you know, again, politics is downstream from culture, as Breitbart once said, and it's 100% accurate. And I think the right misses that a lot. I think Republicans don't understand that. I think Republicans don't grasp how important entertainment and culture, or entertainment, is to our culture. And they continue to talk down about video games or comic books or superheroes because they think it makes them look cool. But in reality, all you're doing is you're continuing to shun that crowd of people that the left has put their claws into. Yeah. And so the right has to understand that. And that goes all the way to Donald Trump, by the way, because Donald Trump has made some idiotic statements about video games, completely stupid. And I called him out on it. So until the Republicans and the conservatives out there understand that, no, it's not cool to shit on video games. It's not cool to talk down about geek culture. You should actually be embracing that, because that's one of the major elements that the left has really sunk their teeth into. So I think we're a long ways away from it going away.
Hmm. Can I ask you a question about, because I know you get all kinds of hate.
No, me? I've never had any hate online ever. It's been all positivity. Yeah, of course. Ask away.
Let me ask you, because I get my own share of hate, but nowhere near as much as I'm sure you get. And what is it that if you could get these people who have the wrong idea of you or what you believe or what you're about, if you could get them to listen to you and actually listen, which I know is impossible a lot of times with people in a cult, but what would you tell them? Like, why do you care about the culture wars?
Yeah, I mean, it is I do not believe any of them are worth my time to talk about them, but to answer the hypothetical question, obviously, because I believe that, I mean, I've seen it firsthand that it doesn't matter what I say or what I do or how many non-white dudes I'm surrounded by, I'm still a racist, sexist, misogynistic, and all that. But in reality, you know, I care about it because it's important. History is important. And creating things is important. Creating things at the core is important. You don't want to take over someone else's creation and build upon it, because that doesn't teach you the core values of what building something gives you for life. You need to learn the ups and downs of building something from the bottom up. And the more that we're just hijacking a pre-existing property and trying to change that, that doesn't build the core foundation of a life lesson of building something. And building something is hard, and you have to go through ups and downs, and you have to go through challenges, and you have to go through second guessing not only yourself but your creation. I did all of that with Geeks and Gamers. I thought about giving up many times when it wasn't doing anything. I questioned myself. I questioned, why am I doing this? I had other people questioning me. And those things are what makes you, it tests your resolve to see, like, how dedicated am I to this idea? And I almost gave up on the idea of Geeks and Gamers because of those insecurities, but those things they helped me become who I am and helped me deal with the negativity that I face all the time. And those are life lessons that you can only get by creating something from the ground up instead of hijacking something that someone else created. So this trend of let's just buy a property that already has an establishment and then put our own, ideology into it, I think is harmful for many reasons. So I think that it hurts life lessons. So when we're having properties out there, if you have an idea, you need to create that idea from the ground up and build it, and it's going to take time. So that's why I think
Yeah.
it's important for us to continue to stop letting these people hijack all of our stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that because I think a lot of times people, and this isn't just on the left, but especially on the left where I was, they tend to think if you have a different how, then we don't have the same why. And what I mean by that is, like, if they look at your policy positions or your opinions on things and it's different than theirs, then they
Mhm.
immediately they say, well, that's because he doesn't care about people. And you're like, no, he does care about people. He does care about goodness. That's why he has his opinions. They're just different. The how is different.
Mhm.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if
Oh
I'm
yeah.
being clear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
I know what you mean.
they so often go to that character assassination where it's like, "Oh, you don't agree with me on whether minimum wage is good for people or bad for people, therefore you don't care about people." It's like,
Right.
no. You can
Yeah.
both support it and oppose it and think that you're doing it because you wanna help people.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's just, I think that that's one of the biggest problems with the culture right now is that I've seen so many of these 20-year-old streamers that have millions of followers and they're like having a mental breakdown while you have millions and millions of dollars and all these fans. And it's like, that's because you didn't work to earn what you have.
Mhm.
You just were gifted this platform and you have millions of people following you overnight because of some dumb TikTok dance or some dumb thing, some viral video, which is fine. I'm not saying that there's anything inherently wrong with that's how you got your growth, but if that person would have been 30 instead of 20 when they got that fortune and fame, they would have been much better equipped to deal with it
Yeah.
because they've probably been through a lot more in life by having a job that probably you didn't like, that didn't pay as good. But you know what? You can't quit that job because guess what? You won't have any money if you're 25. If you're 15 or 17 or whatever, the youngest you can work is, you can quit a job because you're still living with mommy and daddy. But if you're 25 and you're out on your own and you have a job you don't like, you can't just quit that job until you get another job, and then you'll learn maybe the job that you thought was the better job wasn't the better job to begin with, but because one thing went wrong. So it's just life develops you for
Life
different things.
experience.
So that's
Yeah.
like with me. Um, I'm in my 40s now. I'm in a young early 40s now, and most people don't even know that or they think that. I think with the facial hair growing out, I look a little older these days. Um, but I'm glad that I didn't get any of the success I've seen recently when I was younger, because I don't think I would have handled it good. I don't think I would have handled any of it good, and I think that's important.
Completely
So,
agree. I think that's what happens with a lot of the child stars. It's the same thing.
yep,
It's too much too soon before
yep,
you have any kind of grounding,
hmm
to deal with that. Do you mind if I read a couple of these super chats? Let's see.
super chats are very toxic, and I would rather
I'm
you
just
not. I'm
gonna read
kidding.
this
So,
important one.
yeah, I'm
Reminder,
gonna
Keri
leave
beat
now.
Jeremy. Thank you, Dominic.
That's my buddy Dominic right there. So,
Low water mark. Thank you, sir. He said sad. This is back when you were talking about your
yeah,
friends that
yeah,
worked for you
yep.
quitting, which is it's
Well, and to be clear, it's like these were just it's generally like the majority of people at Geeks and Gamers are just they volunteer their time and their talents for the most part, especially back then. So these weren't people that were like on my payroll per se,
but
but
they
I
were
would do what I
friends.
could. So yeah, these were people that I brought in because I thought that they brought a certain level that could help us, and we had a great relationship. But yeah, as soon as the thing that they knew privately was going to be public, it is like the whole narrative shifted, and I was like, wow.
I know so many people. I think that's one of those things that you say it's like not a bug, it's a feature of this ideology. And
Yep.
it's not liberalism. This belief system is not. That's the whole purpose of my channel is trying to like just pull apart what this is, because it's so many people think it's, oh, I'm just a liberal. No, it's not liberalism. Woke is so illiberal. It's culty.
Yep.
Liberal people don't unfriend and disassociate with someone because they voted for the opposite party. Like, it's just,
Right.
it's crazy.
It's
This is not a
crazy.
super chat. I just wanted to put this up here because it's so nice. Curtis says, you all helped save my life. I think he's talking about you and a bunch of
Curtis D
the
is awesome. Yeah, Curtis D's been
folks who are
through a
here.
lot recently, so great to see you here, buddy. And you know, we always try to help in whatever way we can. It's a slippery slope because you have so many people on social media. They go out of their way to virtue signal, to talk about how great they are, and you don't ever want to try to take that approach. But you want to help when somebody needs help, when they genuinely need help. And I never, like, I have an internet persona. It doesn't mean that I'm fake, is that it just means that I turn the volume up on my real personality to another level, and I feed off the chat a lot, and I'm very sarcastic, and I'm very much an asshole, and I can be very mean, I guess, at times to people that hate on me. And but that's just part of it. The people are here to be entertained first and foremost. So when I do run into a situation where you see someone that, you know, is in need of help or whatever, you want to try. You can't help everybody. And most of the time you don't even know if they're being honest about the help they need, because the internet, you never know what's going on. But we try to do what we can. I mean, I don't know if I've ever talked about this publicly. Maybe I have. Maybe I've talked about it privately with some of our members. I honestly don't know. This was a long time ago, but I had a moment with somebody on Twitter. Somebody was tagged me on Twitter, calling me all these names, and I responded. And years ago, I was far more ruthless then than I am now. I was bad on Twitter to respond to people. I said something, and the guy deleted his tweet. And a few days later, I got an email from his friend, and his friend told me like that he had that he had been suffering some mental health problems, and he really, like, he didn't mean to go off on me, but then when I responded to him, and I got on like Discord calls with his family and everything and him to talk about it, because I'm like, that's all right, then let's talk about this to work it out. And I think that everything came to a good place. This person definitely was mentally like not sound at all. And so you never know. You never know who you're dealing with. You never know. And that's not something I tell to, I mean, to make me anybody think I'm a great guy. I'm still just whoever I am. But I've had many situations like that where I've privately tried to hash something out with someone just because the internet stuff and then real life kind of mixed into it. So I was like, okay, you know, let's see what's going on here and see if I can help.
Also, because you don't know. No, I'm glad you're telling this story, because I'm always trying to figure out how to deal with different kinds of hate that comes my way. And sarcasm and humor is a tool. I try to use it sparingly, but sometimes when you're using it and you're swinging that sarcasm sword, or that making fun of, making fun of someone who's making fun of you, you don't know who that person is or what they're going through. So, I mean, that leads me to another question I was going to ask you, which is just, how do you stay positive and joyful, and how do you deal with being a person in the public eye now that your channels have grown so large, and the kind of vitriol that you get? Like, how do you stay buoyant?
Yeah, it's not that hard, because the internet really, like, Twitter is not real life. It's just not. We've done meetups around the country. We've interacted with wonderful people. None of the stuff you actually see on social media actually has any impact on real life. Now, again, there's obviously a crazy person that could show up, and we try to take as many precautions as we can. Usually a lot of the stuff I do, we make sure security elements are in place, just because it's not about being the tough guy as much as being the smart guy. And so there's times where you have to worry about that, but it's such a relatively a thing that we rarely see. And so I don't see it in the real world. I see it on Twitter. I can turn off Twitter at any point in time. I can turn off social media at any time. The only thing that bothers me is not the hate or the negativity. It's the strive to continue to grow and get better. And that's what stresses me out, is just I want to continue to build Geeks and Gamers well beyond where it's at, but the negativity just, it really doesn't have an impact on me.
That's great.
It maybe it did at one point in time. I think I've talked about this before, but like when I first was called racist and sexist on the internet, like it was like horrible. I just don't care anymore, and mainly because the words mean nothing, and for
And you know who
anybody,
you are.
yeah. So it used to maybe matter, but it doesn't anymore. So
If you could, just based on what you've learned having all of your time online, and like you said, maybe it used to bother you at the beginning, like, what would you tell people? I still encounter people all the time who will write me and say, "I agree with what you're saying," and some of these people I know from my past, some I don't, but they're like, "I agree with what you're saying, but I'm too afraid to hit like, but I just want to know I privately support you." Like, what kind of advice would you give those people?
yeah, I mean, I talk to a lot of people, a lot of YouTubers actually. They're far bigger than me that they agree with everything I say, but they don't want to publicly be connected, And,
Mhm.
and that's the conversation I always have with everybody that reaches out to me. I'm like, if you don't want to know, if you don't want people to know I talk to you, that's fine.
Mhm.
I totally respect it, even though if you feel strongly about something, but you're too scared to speak up about it, but you see other people that are out there speaking up about it, that should be the answer. The answer is right in front of you that
If
you
it
need to
bothers
speak
you.
out. Yeah. Yeah. If it bothers you. So if you're watching content from someone that you agree with and that you would like to public support, but you don't because various other things are keeping you from it, the answer is already there for you as to what you should do, or you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people in general. Because if you're scared to have an opinion around the people that you have around you, that says a lot about the crowd you have around you. So you have to, it's all individual level because you don't want to force anybody to make a rash decision or anything like that. But that's definitely a personal decision that each person has to make. But if you're surrounded by people you're scared of, if to have an opinion, that says a lot about the people you're surrounded with.
Mm. What do you think are, like, where we're at culturally and the the rot and all the stuff that we're seeing in entertainment and the entertainment space that's built around this whole belief system of putting people in identity groups and then rating them and giving them different power based on what group they're in. That whole belief system, like, what do you think are some of the antidotes to that, or the problems that are fueling it? Either or.
Um, well, I think it goes back to the mental health thing. I think that they want people with mental health problems that they can manipulate. You know what I mean? And the more that they see mental health problems out there, they want to take those people and go, oh, you're suffering from a I don't know, what is it called, gender dysphoria, I think is the scientific term for it now. Oh, well, it's okay, it's totally okay, just be yourself, there's nothing wrong with you, there's something wrong with them. And it's like, no, I'm not trying to be mean. Like, there's something wrong with that person. We need to address that. They need someone, a professional, to kind of get involved. But the problem is the professional field is kind of being overrun by
Yeah.
people that are interested in pushing that nonsense too. So I think it's people that are preying on the weak-minded. That's what I'm seeing. It's a concerted effort to prey upon the weak-minded, and the answer for that is to speak out at this point in time. That's the most simplistic answer, is just to continue to speak out, because the more that people think that something, or the more that people think that they're on the right side of something in a discussion, the more that they're going to feel like they continue on that path. But when people start speaking out and going, actually, no, I don't agree with this. Actually, no, I don't agree with that. I can't tell you how many people that I know or know of that are influential in certain industries, but they refuse to speak out because they don't want to be quote unquote canceled. Well, what type
Right.
of impact on the culture are you as a powerful person in the culture having, or could have, if you were just willing to go, hey, yeah, I like Trump. Hey, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't agree with the jab. Hey, yeah, but we have powerful people that are influential that will not speak out. If those powerful people in large numbers start speaking out, then it starts to take that echo chamberish narrative that we're getting right now. Because personally, like, I have never, like, you look at me like, you can't go certain places and say you're a Trump supporter right now. You just
Yeah.
can't do it. You literally can't do it, and it's crazy that we live in this world. We went to Boston last year for a meetup. Walked past this, like, all these places with Black Lives Matter banners and stuff like that. That's fine. You can have your opinion. The difference is that I'm looking at that going, you couldn't have a MAGA thing
You
right
could.
here. You couldn't. It wouldn't be able to happen. They would tear it down in a heartbeat.
In
And
Austin, same thing. I saw a lady get out of her car and tear down a Ted Cruz sign in the middle of a busy intersection. It was the only Ted Cruz sign. The whole street was lined with Beto signs. Lady risked her life and limb to get that sign down.
Yep. And so it's like, so you have people like the LeBron James of the world. I don't like LeBron James, but LeBron James is a very powerful and influential figure in our culture, because he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He has a huge following. He has the entire NBA behind him. And LeBron James is literally spreading lies and misinformation on social media on a weekly basis. He's literally lying. The things he is saying are factually not true, but he's able to get away with it. And you go, how can people with common sense not look at this? Like, you're telling me that there aren't 50% of the NBA players that are going, this mother effer is lying.
Yeah.
They know he's lying, but they're terrified to speak out against it. People have to start getting braver to speak out so they can show that common sense is still relevant and it's still a part of our world. But right now it seems like common sense isn't so common anymore. But the reality of it is Trump did get 75 million votes, which is the most for any sitting president ever. And he increased his vote rank by a lot.
Especially like in places you wouldn't expect. I mean, in New York City, he increased it like among gay and lesbian voters, Latino voters, Black voters. Like, I'm sorry, I looked distracted for a second because something you said, I was trying to look up this phrase. You made me think of when there's a word for it, when everybody is quiet because they think everyone else agrees with the ideology. Like, they don't agree with it, but they think everyone else does. But everyone's like that. In the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale, The Emperor's New Clothes, it's often that story is often talked about with this phrase. I can't find it. Somebody in the chat, find what I'm talking about. But it's where everybody stays quiet because socially they think that everyone else thinks the emperor has clothes on. So they go along with it. They're like, well, he must, I'm going to pretend like he has clothes on too, because they all think he does.
Exactly. And that is it. And that's why you need more people talking about it. God, I wish I could say, again, I would never, ever hurt the trust of the people that have trusted me with stuff. But it's like, I see people like weaponize people against me, like in the YouTube world. And they're like, so-and-so, hopefully they'll call Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers out one day. And you're like, I fucking talked to this person. You guys think they're going to call me out. You know what I mean? And I'm going, what type of impact would that person have who has far more followings than me, bigger following, bigger impact, but they don't call this out. They just ride the fence of sorts. That's just crazy. And these are like people that are well beyond like they're not like news commentators. They're not movie people. These are big creators, and I think about like what type of impact they could have if they would just go, yeah, I don't actually agree with all this stuff. This is actually bullshit, because they have a lot of impressionable minds that are watching them, but it's just never going to happen. I feel like, because they're terrified.
They're terrified and they think everyone else believes in it too. Yeah.
Yes. No, I don't know Tim Pool, chat. I don't know Tim Pool, and I'm not.
Why are they asking if you know Tim Pool? Krista's
they,
here.
They thought that when I said ride the fence, that's the first thing. That's a Tim Pool joke. So what up, Krista?
Hello, Krista. We got a couple more super chats. Night Train, thank you so much. He says, wise man saying, if you're wearing an Auburn shirt, you went to the university. If you're wearing an Alabama shirt, you went to Walmart. Hail all.
That's really good. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's good old college football talk. College football talk. Basically saying Auburn fans are authentic because they went to the university, where Alabama fans are just bandwagoners and they just went to Walmart. So it's good. Okay, I'm a Bama fan.
Here in Texas, that would be UT. If you're wearing a UT shirt, you just went to Walmart.
And high school football and college football is big in Texas, which obviously, like, one of my favorite TV shows, Friday Night Lights, not Friday Night Lights, Friday Night Lights was a television show, and it actually focused on Texas high school football. Fantastic show. Captures the essence of what high school football is in Texas. Such a great show. I love it so much.
Well, since you're since you mentioned that, I was going to ask you, what are some to get more positive and about like what people are creating? What is some positive stuff that you like? Like, what are some shows, whether they come from the mainstream or from alternative content creators? Like, what's some stuff that you're watching that you actually like?
Well, I just recently watched Cobra Kai. I made a
Mhm.
really clickbaity video to say it was woke, even though I praised every bit of it. And the people that I expected to fall for it were really mad at me and screenshotting the thumbnail. And they're like, he hates it because there's an Asian woman. And I'm like, no, I actually praised literally every second of the show
That
in my
is so
video.
funny. You just did
Yeah.
a trolling with the title.
Yes. So yeah, Cobra Kai season 5 was fantastic. I loved it. I loved the entire series of Cobra
Yep.
Kai. Recently, we had Better Call Saul, which was a prequel to Breaking Bad, which in a lot of ways was as good as Breaking Bad. I don't think it stuck the landing as good as Breaking Bad, but even to be in the conversation with Breaking Bad is kind of crazy. And what's interesting is that had a female lawyer in it named Kim Wexler, written by men, and she was fantastic. Versus you have the She-Hulk female lawyer written by women, which is a trash fire. Interesting how that works out. But like Kim Wexler is a character, female character that was put into an iconic world with an iconic universe of characters that we all know. And she did nothing but compliment that world, compliment everything about it. And it's because she was written for the right reasons.
Mhm.
And it's Vince Gilligan, who's behind the entire show of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and everything. The man is just passionate and knows what he's doing. I don't know if you ever watched Breaking Bad,
I love
but
Breaking Bad, and
okay.
you know what? My husband's been on me. We both love Cobra Kai, but I haven't watched Better Call Saul, and he does, and he's been on me like, "You need to watch
It's
this."
so good.
So,
It's so good. You'll love it. You'll love it, especially if you're a fan of Breaking Bad. You'll absolutely love it. I mean, obviously, we had Top Gun Maverick this past year, and that blew up, and everybody loved that.
that was
I
good.
was shockingly enough, Dune was a movie, and I've praised it a lot. Dune was one of my favorite theatrical experiences I've had in a long time. I loved that movie. I'm looking forward to the sequel of it. I just recently started getting into anime more. Shout out to Krista Nova, who's our resident anime person. We also have Weebs and Wife, who's an anime channel at Geeks and Gamers. But anime is fantastic. Anime has fantastic storytelling, great characters, and that's what a lot of Western audiences have kind of adapted with everything going on in Hollywood. There's a lot of good anime out there, and obviously the video game aspect of things. I play a lot of games, and so
Mhm.
there is good stuff out there. It's just it's being overrun by the majority of the bad stuff out there.
But when there's something good, isn't there this can't you see it in the audience response? I mean,
Hmm.
like you said, Top Gun: Maverick, I heard about that movie from so many people. I mean, I finally had to go watch it because 'cause they're like, everyone's talking about it, almost as like people even the mainstream, the most people are thirsty for something that's just good.
Yes, yeah, and it's that's exactly what Maverick was. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like I like Tom Cruise. I think he's a great actor. He's a great action star. That goes without saying. I know he's got a narrative around him that he's a weirdo, and he probably is a really weirdo in person, but it doesn't matter. But the trailer for Top Gun Maverick, I thought it was fantastic.
Mhm.
I thought it looked really good. And I remember we did a poll on Friday Night Tights, and it was like, I think it was like 60-40 before the movie came out. 60-40 people like not interested. And mainly that's just because they're just tired of Hollywood, and I get that.
Yeah.
And they've been burned too many times. But so I felt like the enthusiasm was kind of there for Top Gun Maverick, but kind of wasn't. But once it released and once the word of mouth happened, it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was. This is Tom Cruise, the biggest movie star, probably ever, and this was his highest grossing movie ever made. Like that's crazy to
Wow.
me. That's crazy.
I didn't even know that, but that's yeah,
Yeah.
that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. I think
Yeah.
it's like, why don't they get the lesson? Like, look, people are starving for this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. But there's there's been some cool stuff. There are some good things like out there that I've seen in the last several years. Like I don't know if you're like horror or
I
scary stuff,
love
but like
horror.
The
That's like my
Haunting of Hill House on Netflix was fantastic.
Oh, really? I thought I skipped
Yes.
over it. I thought it looked cheesy. I need to
Oh,
watch
The
it.
Haunting of Hill
Okay.
House was so freaking good. Now there was another one, Bly Manor, I think, that they came out, which I thought was not as good, but it was still really like interesting to watch because of the mood and the tone in it. But yeah, Haunting of Hill House, I thought was phenomenal. Loved it, loved it. So I
Wow,
highly recommend that one.
cool. I just saw this movie, Parasite, which It's a Korean film that won Best Picture, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
late to watch it.
Yep.
Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm. I haven't, but I know about it. So
It was great. And again, it's sort of like with the anime thing. I think that there are a lot of I think there's probably a lot of great entertainment coming out of like Asian countries that aren't as consumed with this belief system.
mm-hmm.
They're just like, we're just making good stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah, there is some good stuff out there. I mean, we saw the big thing with like Squid Game blew up, and that was that was a cultural phenomenon for a little while. Stranger Things season 4 was really
again,
good. I liked it. So yeah, there's been some interesting stuff. I mean, look, the Andor just released Disney Star Wars. I kind of like the 3 episodes, the first 3 episodes. The 4th one just came out the other day. I haven't really talked about it publicly yet. It was fine. It was more of the same, but it's not the worst. It's interesting enough. The world that they've created is interesting enough to where it's not offensively bad or anything yet, but we'll see how that continues to go.
okay, I've got to put this one on the screen. Thank you, Ken Litson. Mr. Watercolor Artist says, I watch Jeremy every night and I've never heard this side. Love this interview. I love you too, Keri.
Thank
Along
you.
those lines, will you break some information for me on Deprogrammed? What's something about you that people don't know or might be surprised to know?
I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty transparent. I just feel like I'm so aggressive when I'm kind of on my shows, or doing my thing.
You have cute little dogs.
I have 2 cute little dogs. Love them to death. Before we continue, Yellowstone also, the trailer for Yellowstone just came out.
Okay.
Yellowstone. Watch Yellowstone.
Okay.
Holy shit,
I'm
Yellowstone is
making
so
notes.
good. Yellowstone with Kevin Costner. Fantastic. Anyway, yeah, my 2 little dogs, I love them to death. I used to feature them a lot on my channels. There's Puppy Face, which is the one that's in the thumbnail. He's the white and
Okay.
black dog. And then there's Leia, who's the fat, chunky brown one who's in my profile picture. And I've always hated little dogs because I've always had big dogs. So I had a husky wolf mix for a long time. His name was Diesel. He was a badass. He had blue eyes, man's dog. And I always like bigger dogs or at least medium sized dogs. And I always liked little dogs were the stupidest things ever. And Puppy Face kind of ended up, in my life by accident, and loved the hell out of him. And he was so sweet, and I was just like, damn, little dogs are kind of cool. And then Leia, by default, Leia was a dog that basically she had an owner who basically worked all day long from morning to night. So she literally would just sit in the house with the TV on with no attention whatsoever, none. And in a certain way, she was almost a rescue because she had she had no affection, no nothing. And so we ended up with her, and she's a handful. But she's a sweetheart. She's crazy as hell.
She's probably the happiest dog ever.
She is so happy. Never like Puppy Face. I mean, he's getting up there in age, and he's had some health problems. He's getting real grouchy at his old age. Where Leia, she's just happy to be alive. Like Leia's just whatever, not a worry in the world. And if you really want to see me like could be a complete little bitch, just watch me around my dogs, because I just melt with my little bitty dogs. And again, I'm the guy that would call anybody fruity, I guess would be the proper word, if they had a little dog back in the day. And here I am with my little dogs, and they're like, Jeremy's just trying to be an alpha male. I'm like, I have 2 little dogs that I love more than anything in the world. You know what I mean? But dogs are family. Dogs are family.
Dog. Little dogs sometimes have the biggest personalities. I have a little dog, and he's like, he usually is the alpha around large dogs. Not in a mean way. He just kind of puts them in their place. He doesn't really know what to do with little dogs. He's sort of like, what are you?
Yep.
But
yeah, they're the sweetest. They're the best. So maybe I'll have them make an appearance in the future, because I used to bring them on some of my streams and stuff, and people have been asking about them. I actually showed you a video of Leia right before we went live that I'm working on, because people have asked about them. And they are the best. So
put those little dogs on TikTok. Make them
I know. Make me some money. So Leia and Puppy Face for Mario Kart. Yeah, but outside of that, I don't know if there's like, I feel like I feel like I'm pretty transparent for the most part. So,
Well, we've got one here from Dominic who says, I call Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers out. He's the sexiest call out on Twitface.
yes, I mean, listen, I didn't name myself, unlike like LeBron James named himself the greatest basketball player ever, King James. I didn't name myself the sexiest man on Twitter. Twitter activists did, and I humbly accept being called the sexiest man on Twitter. Man, social justice just one spelling word away from calling me a sexist or the sexiest. It's amazing how that worked out. So
what is the funniest about this, for anyone who doesn't know this, I guess this happened today. Someone was trying to call him a sexist and they called him sexiest. But what's so funny about it is, in the left, I find, is they don't have a good sense of humor. They kind of lose that.
No.
And so if you made a spelling error like that about someone you were attacking for being sexist and you accidentally just roll with it, just laugh. Just laugh. But she deleted it.
Yeah. Well, I remember I always talk shit to people in my chat sometimes. If I see somebody if they come in the chat and they're criticizing me or something, if I catch it, I'll say something back. And their response determines if they're going to be able to be a fan of mine or not. Like even the last week on Fortnite, we were playing, or maybe it was, I can't remember. We were playing a game and some guy came in the chat. It was Fortnite. Yeah. And he was just trashing me. He was like, your aim sucks, blah, 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 blah. And I made a really, you don't mind if I say something inappropriate, do you?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I just came back because he was like, your aim sucks. I was like, I aimed right for your mom's mouth last night and hit it. and so he comes back and he's like, what did he say? He said something in a joking way back, but I could tell he appreciated the joke. And I'm like, bro, like you're good. And then he subscribed. And then he's like, hey man, I think I'm going to like it here. He goes, I'm just sitting here with my girl eating Taco Bell. I'm like, Taco Bell, Ryan, you're going to love Ryan then. And he became a fan of the channel. Versus how many times have I said that to somebody and they just go lose their minds? Like, I can't believe that. And I'm like, all you had to do was come back at me and we would have been good, you know? So it's just like, it's just little stuff like that you can tell if somebody's actually gonna, we all make mistakes. We all mess up. Like how many times have I made a spelling error on Twitter? You do it and it's funny, you know?
You just have to have a sense of humor.
Just roll with it. Roll with it. It's not that complicated.
I'm going to read just a couple more of these. I know I'm about to lose you. You got to take off, and I really appreciate you.
No, that's fine. Yeah. We got a few minutes, so.
Waffle gives me 15 Bitcoin. I'm kidding. Says, don't mind me. I'm just here to enjoy the confused face Keri's trying to figure out what currency this is for the ninth time. Yes, I know what it is now. It's shekels. That's what they look like. It looks like a Bitcoin. Doc Savage. Hello, Doc. Thank you for the super chat. Says, may I recommend the Indian action film RRR? I can't take how badass it is. Ask Chris Gore. It's 100% dope.
I need to watch this. I've been hearing a lot about it.
Me too. Actually, I think it was Chris Gore who told me about that. Thank you for reminding me.
And Chris Gore is another one of these. Like, Chris Gore is not like a guy who's like trying to change culture or anything as much as he's passionate about film. Film Threat does a phenomenal job of telling you about films that you may have never heard of. And he gives great takes. I love Chris Gore, respect him so much. But
I like him.
Yeah, he's just gonna give you insight as to like, hey, I didn't even know this film was a thing. Film Threat's doing a great job, and we need more places like Film Threat.
Yeah. That's kind of what do you think about people who actually are like the change makers, whatever? I'm starting to wonder if the people who are the most effective are just being themselves. Like, they're not going out and seeing themselves as an activist. I'm so tired of the word activist. I don't care what kind of activist you are, if you're a woke activist or anti-woke activist, whatever. It's like, I'm just tired of activists. Like, if that's your identity, like, don't you think maybe that people who are affect the most change don't really maybe set out to do so?
Yeah, I mean, I think so for sure, because it's being authentic and being real there's no substitute for that at all. And I mean, I think that's what a lot of what we are at Geeks and Gamers. I mean, I wasn't looking to change anything. I wasn't looking to fight anything. I was looking to just defend myself.
You're just yourself.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I like Trump. You don't. Okay. Is that a problem? Like, is this a friendship defining moment, really, because that's crazy to me. So I that's all I ever wanted to do. And I don't personally like being like, if you're asking me, do I want to be in the culture war? Am I actively trying to be in it? The answer is no. I'm not. I'm not trying to be. I think I am by default, because
Yes.
standing up for your own individual opinions and your own individual rights is, by technically, you've been put in the culture war now. But I'm not actively trying to be in it, and I'm not trying to force anybody to do anything outside of just be themselves. But I think that by default is putting a lot of us on the same page.
Yeah.
And a lot of
And
us are just by default going, yeah, we need to fight this together.
I include you in that group, like with Chris Gores. That's what I mean, is I think that you and Gary and Ryan and a lot of these people who are right at the front of this culture war, it's like the reluctant leader. Do you know what I mean? Like Jack in Lost. He didn't want to be the leader, but he was the best leader. But
I unapologetically love that show. I love the
I
whole
do
fucking
too.
show. Like,
I
even
love
the
the whole.
end. I know people like, oh, I love the end of that show. I love
So
everything
do
about it.
I.
Thank you. Thank you.
People
Love
always
it.
give me shit for that, but I love the
Yeah.
end.
Love that show so much.
Yeah, but I think that's why you're so effective, and I think that's why people are drawn to the channel is that, like, authenticity. And it's sort of like, I'm not setting out to remake the world. Like, I'm not setting out to pick up my sign and go to the protest every day and tell people how to fix the economy when I can't make my bed, to borrow an analogy from Jordan Peterson, which I think that's what a lot of activists are like, which is they're sort of, I'm going to make being an activist my identity because I can't really get a handle on the things that are actually in my control, like my personal life, how I carry myself, how I behave,
Yeah, and it is, because I don't wake up every day thinking I have to do something to change the world, as much as I just want to be able to live my life and be able to do what I want to do and have my opinions. And if you want to have yours, that's fine. The problem is that's not what we're facing right now.
Yeah.
My opinion is deemed offensive and dangerous to people.
Yeah.
Like, they want me deplatformed. Why? Because I don't like The Last Jedi. It's crazy. So it's like you're actively being put into something that you're not even looking to be involved in by default.
Where do you think things are going before you leave? I guess I'd like to say, are you red pilled, white pilled, black pilled? Where do you think things are heading?
Am I personally? Like, I mean, I think I've always been a person that I just kind of, I determine my support based on what I see. So I don't consider myself a Republican. I don't consider myself a Democrat. I don't consider myself anything other than me, and I just make my own opinions based on what I see. The first time I ever voted was Donald Trump, in 2016. That's the first time I'd ever voted. But I was always into politics, like, followed it. I wanted Obama to win his election because I hated George W. Bush and I hated the Republican Party. I hated them. I despised what they did to the country with Iraq and everything, and Patriot Acts, all that shit. But so I really did not want the Republican Party as it was to continue to move forward because of that. So I supported Obama strongly for the first election and into the second. And then all of a sudden, the second one, I started to see what was going on with him and how manipulative he was and how vindictive he was and how he was shifting the conversation. Every time there was a police shooting, he would be the first person to talk about it and set a tone and a narrative about our brave police officers. And I'm like, you're a piece of shit. You really are. And so as that was happening, I started to see, well, there's nobody on the Republican side. Geez, there's nobody that was going to be like Jeb, Marco Rubio. What? And there comes Trump. And so I put my support behind him. So I don't think I think Hollywood has red pilled me from that perspective. The Last Jedi, Ghostbusters 2016, all the other stuff going on. I've been red pilled from that perspective, but socially, I think I've always just been a guy that looked at the landscape and determined what I wanted to support based on what was going on in the world around me.
You're a true independent.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so because, like I said, I never liked labels. I don't like the R or the D next to my name. I just want to be able to make up my own opinion. I have no problem labeling myself a Trump guy.
Mhm.
but not a Republican per se. Maybe a
I'm starting
Trumplican.
a
I'm a
independent
Trumplican.
party. Will you join that party? Okay.
I'm a Trumplican. There we go. I'm a Trumplican.
Trumplican.
So yeah. So yeah, I'll join your independent party. Let's go. Let's go. As long as there's no fake news around you beating me at Mario Kart in this independent party. So
Uh, but where do you think things are going online? Like you mentioned, people want to cancel you and stuff. Do you think there's all these alternative platforms now, and do you think there's going to be a moment where something rises up to challenge YouTube, or do you think people are going to go to their own individual sites and come up with their own way of streaming, or what do you think is going to happen online?
it's interesting because YouTube is a fascinating thing because for all of our complaints about YouTube, for all of the stuff that we do like or don't like, YouTube is a behemoth. It's insane how big YouTube is. It really is. I don't think people fully comprehend it, especially the people that hate us, because these weirdos seem to think that people like me and Gary dominate YouTube. It's like there's some dude playing a video game right now. It's got like 150, 200,000 people watching
Yeah,
him. You know, like
there's a guy.
Mr. Beast gets 100 million views per video. You know what I mean? Like,
There's a guy filling up his living room with slime right now and jumping in it, like
yeah, and getting
Nickelodeon
far
style.
more views than any of
Yeah.
us. Not even close. So, but I Rumble is promising right now at this point in time, and I've talked about Rumble a lot, and I've been talking with Rumble for a while, and from a back end standpoint, I think they're doing a great job, but from a front end standpoint, from a UI standpoint, it's awful, and it's like right now, people like Salty Crackers crushing it on Rumble. Viva and Barnes are crushing on Rumble. There's not really a market for geeks and gamers or what we do right now on Rumble. Like they're over there. We have 20,000 subscribers on Rumble, but we don't get a ton of views over there
Mhm.
unless we're actually like politically heavy or something like that. So there's not a huge market for the gaming geek entertainment world yet, but I
Mhm.
hope that will change. I hope it will change. I also like Odyssey, but Rumble to me has got the more potential and more backing to kind of compete with YouTube. And I think it's possible, but it's going to take a lot of time because YouTube does a lot of things well, a lot.
Mhm.
Like you look at how Rumble operates. Rumble has a lot of money. They have a lot of users. Rumble sucks compared to YouTube though. And
Yeah.
and until you have that user experience down pat, you're not gonna make a dent in YouTube. You're just not gonna do it. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. I mean, I can bring up like an old school wrestling discussion from like back in the day. WWF was king, and they've always been king, and they are still king. But there was a quick run there in the mid '90s where WCW, which was purchased by Ted Turner, essentially dethroned WWF for about a year. I feel like
Mhm.
about a year in the ratings, and it's the first time they'd ever lost in the ratings. No one had thought it was possible for this to happen. Like it was literally being like YouTube, or it would be like Rumble surpassing YouTube in in viewership.
Wow.
That's how big this was. And WCW couldn't handle the success though. They made it on top for a little while, but they couldn't manage the success of being on top. And eventually, years later, WWF ended up buying WCW out completely because they stomped them in the ground because they couldn't handle the success. So it's one thing to become a competitor. It's another thing to overtake your competition, and it's another thing to maintain that success once you're on top. That's why it's going to take a long time for
Yeah.
somebody or anybody to compete with YouTube.
Yeah. And I try to think of that. I didn't know about that wrestling analogy, but I try to think about, remember when MySpace was on top and then Facebook pushed them out of the way? But that was different because that was when they were both sort of emerging. It was at the beginning
Mm-hmm.
of even
Yep.
having sites like that, these social sites. So
Yep.
I can't even imagine someone dominating Facebook or Twitter right now, but
Yep.
I mean, knock on
Absolutely.
wood, it'll
Yeah.
happen.
We'll see. One day we'll see what happens, but it's going to take a while for somebody to topple YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna blow through these really fast.
Okay.
CJ, thank you so much. $10 says, "Hi, Keri. I came here from DDayCobra. Now I'm subbed to you. Well, welcome. I appreciate it." He says, "I appreciate your perspective. And Jeremy, I hope you bring Keri on main event." I've been on main event. You
Mm-hmm.
guys were, when I started my new channel, were so kind to have me on.
We can get you on again. We can get you on again.
Force of Light ladies are here. Hello. Hey,
Force of
ladies.
Light's awesome. They're great.
I love them. Epic Mike, I constantly criticize Jeremy for being terrible at Mario Kart. It's very important to win the culture wars. That's your contribution, I see.
Epic Mike, my boy, my boy.
Dominic says, wise man saying, if you're wearing an Auburn shirt, you had to redefine tackle. If you're wearing an Oregon shirt, you merely need to suck off Phil Knight.
Phil Knight's the CEO of Nike, and they have heavy involvement in Oregon's football program.
What did you
Keri just learning some of our lore, so
I'm learning some lingo too. Souk
that's
off,
right.
low watermark. Thank you for the super chat. I think that's all. Oh wait, no. Here we go. Jeremy is a subpar MK racer.
I mean, now Arkansas's just lying. But we are playing tonight with our premium members on Geeks and Gamers Play, so I'm looking forward to that. So
right on.
we're playing Fortnite.
Hi Keri and F Jeremy.
Nico.
Okay. And
we have I had a long time ago when I would get so much Twitter hate, I was on live streams. I'm like, if you're a supporter or anything, just criticize me so much to where it makes these weirdos that really hate me have to even try harder to make like, no, I really hate him. No, I really hate him. It's just turned into a big meme now. It's great.
About how much people hate you. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like judo where you.
Yeah. I just like to flip the script on them.
Flip it. Okay, well, I'm going to let you go. You've got a members only live stream coming up with Fortnite.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what time it is. I have something else I have to knock out first before that. That's why I had to cut. And I apologize for having to bounce on you. So
no, that's fine. I so appreciate you coming.
And I would love to. Yeah, if you need me back for anything, I'd like to get you a main event at some point. But if you wanted to add more to the conversation at some point, let me know, because I know there was probably more you wanted to ask, and there's more I'd love to talk to you about, because I appreciate your journey too. And I think it's important to talk about what you've been through and how you've gotten here, because that's a very important piece of the puzzle, which makes you extremely unique in all this. This is why everybody should be watching your channel and supporting you, because you have a unique perspective on all of this that most of us don't have. So that's really cool.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. I will say this. You guys have gotten me addicted to Mario Kart. So
there we go. There we go. There we go.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight. Go check out if you're a member, go do the Fortnite stream.
Well, and we're streaming it publicly, but only members can join us. So it'll be on Geeks and Gamers Play.
Cool. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye, everyone.